It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. Subscribe to my YouTube channel by going to youtube.com/@randywangradio and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts, which for more and more people these days is YouTube. Now, I just got to be upfront with you. I am live today. It is December 10th at 5:07. If I got the delay right, I think they got that almost exactly right because we're like 40 seconds behind because we don't want the swears to go over the air. Anyway, I wasn't supposed to be here today. I don't know if you're aware, but I was selected for jury duty service this week. That's right. I was supposed to be in jury duty. That was supposed to be the thing that I was going to do today. I was selected for a week in August, but I was going to be out of town, so I had to delay it. So I looked into delaying it to November, but then I started thinking to myself, okay, if I do the third week of November, what if I get put on a trial and then I have to go to Santa Fe for a week? That's not going to be good. So I decided I've got a pretty good gap here in the early part of December. We can put the service in. We can make it happen. And so Friday, I checked in right after the show. You check in at 6 p.m. And they said, you don't need to be here. Check in tomorrow. So Monday comes around. I do a show, 6 p.m. You don't need to be here. Check again. So at this point, I'm like, oh, this is just going to be what this is every single day. So then yesterday after the show, I'm working on posting the podcast of this show, and I totally forget to even check. And then Art, our assistant program director, is like, hey, did you check in for jury duty? And what do you know? It said, please report to the Van Nuys Courthouse tomorrow, which already is nice. That I did not have to report to downtown LA. I could report to the Van Nuys Courthouse, which is fairly close to where I live. But this is a big deal because if I'm doing jury duty, that means I can't do the noon to 3 show. It's possible I can't do the 5 o'clock show. Not only I'm not there to be able to produce the content and from noon to 3 run the board, so someone has to come in and do that. But I have clients that I do live reads for that I'm not going to be able to provide that service, which, by the way, costs me actual money. But regardless, I'm here to do my duty, to do my service. So I text all the important people. And then I wake up at 5 and not really sure what to do with my day because now my schedule's off. You know, usually I wake up at about between 5 and 6. I start playing around on my phone. Maybe I'm subscribing to all the videos I'm going to listen to on my morning walk, doing all my show prep. Maybe I'm posting stuff on one of my YouTube channels. And then at 7, I feed the dogs. The dogs and I have couch time for a good while, you know, because they want to sit on the couch, so I can't not sit on the couch with them. And that's usually when I play my Nintendo. That's some me time. I very much enjoy it. And then around 8:30 is when, okay, it's time to start working out. It's time to take the dogs on a 30-minute walk around the neighborhood. We go 1.5 miles. And then lately, especially now that I'm off of the reduction phase of the diet that I've been on, I'm in the maintenance phase. I'm actually encouraged to be working out more and putting on more muscle. So I am actually doing a lot more workouts. I've pulled out, dusted off the weight bench, and I'm doing bench presses with my little dumbbells that I've had. I've got 215s and 220s. Maybe at some point I'll need more than that, but I don't think anytime soon. I'm working on some ab workouts. I'm working on some leg workouts. I'm getting back on the Peloton. So I'm doing a good hour of workout every day. And by the way, when I'm on that 30-minute walk and while I'm working out, I've got my Meta glasses on so I can listen to all the YouTube stories that are all the content you hear on this show and the John Phillips Show. So I wasn't able to do any of that because I needed to be at the Van Nuys Courthouse at 9:30. And I didn't know how bad traffic was going to be. I don't drive that way. So I thought, I always try to be early. I panic about how bad traffic is, and I never want to be late to anything. Maybe it's because I've worked in radio for nearly 20 years, and you really can't be late in radio. Like, the show's going on at 5 o'clock, whether I'm here or not. And there has been a day back when Kamala Harris was vice president where she shut down the freeway for so long, I had to call Lewis, our program director, and be like, I don't know if I'm going to get there by 5. I ended up getting there, but sometimes you cut it real tight. In fact, I was late for this job only once. And it was back when I worked on the morning show, but I was the board op for the morning show. So if I'm not there, you don't hear anybody. You don't hear McIntyre. You don't hear Terry Ray Elmer, what have you. And it was the first year I worked on that show. And the night before was Cinco de Mayo. And my wife and I went out and we went to drinking, and we went a pub crawling in Burbank, which actually is a thing and you can do it. And I remember getting a phone call from our news director and executive producer, Nathan Baker, at 5:05. Again, I'm supposed to be there. I usually got there at like 4:45. Show went on at 5. At 5:05, I see a call from Nathan after several other missed calls. And I answer the phone, hello. And on the other end, I just hear laughing because they knew exactly what happened. And I had fulfilled every single stereotype that all of these KABC people thought about me when they hired this jackass. Anyway, I, because of those reasons, never want to be late. So I left my home to travel to Van Nuys at 8:45 to get there by 9:30. I ended up getting there at 9. And a really funny thing happened as I was driving to Van Nuys, because I haven't been to the Van Nuys courthouse in a very long time. I can't even tell you the last time I was selected for jury duty. You know, I moved in and out of the city of Los Angeles a couple of times because I moved to Burbank, then I moved out of Burbank. I've lived in this address so long, they did track me down. But I started thinking to myself, and it's funny how sense memory works. I don't remember. When's the last time I went to this courthouse? And then a voice in my head said, oh, you know exactly when it was. I went to the Van Nuys courthouse to speculate in 2011 when the Van Nuys courthouse was being taken over as part of Occupy Wall Street. Remember that movement? And it was the Occupy the San Fernando Valley. So the reason I remember that is very specific. And thank goodness I always email things to myself. My Gmail that I've had for 15 years is like my lifelong Rolodex, because I just happened to do a quick search once I parked my car. I'm like, there's no way I still have this sound. I went to just see what these protests were all about, because it was all the rage at the time. Everyone was talking about what was going on at Occupy Wall Street and Occupy Van Nuys. And I remember there was a man who was wearing a mask, like one of those masks that you see, like the anonymous people. And this was way before any of that stuff. And he put the megaphone up to his lips. And to this day, I will never, ever forget what he said.
My name is Man Goo Goo. Man Goo Goo. That's right.
A man proceeded to speak and talk about all his grievances against the government, whose name was Man Goo Goo.
My name is Man Goo Goo. Man Goo Goo. That's right.
I will never forget that. It makes me so happy, not only that I remembered that, but that I had the sound. I mean, I'm in a very lucky position where when I remember things that happened 15 years ago, I usually have some sound effect or drop that correlates with it. And the fact that I was able to find it and remember this and then immediately send it to my old podcast partners.
My name is Man Goo Goo. Man Goo Goo. That's right.
So regardless, I get to the courthouse after missing the parking garage one too many times. In fact, I think the last time I went to the courthouse, I didn't even know there was a parking garage, and I parked at a meter, and then I panicked, like, what if I have to sit here for more than 4 hours? Anyway, I get into the parking garage. Turns out if you bring your juror slip, which I had, the parking's free. Because if they were about to charge me $10 for something they're making me do after I'm already losing $75 for being here, I'd be a little irritated. Like I get paid. It's a whole thing. So I get into the courthouse at 9:10, 20 minutes early. There's a giant juror assembly room that is maybe a fifth full of just people sitting there. Thank goodness for cell phones, and they do have free Wi-Fi in there because there's a lot of time to kill in the juror assembly room. But of course, nothing was going to start early, so I plopped down. There's no one that even tells you if you have to check in. They're like, just sit down. We'll get to you. So I sit. I start playing with my phone. I start uploading this folder of old cooking videos that I'm posting to my new cooking video channel, POV Cooking Shorts. You can check that one out. Cooking POV Shorts. It's one of those. I'm probably the better one. And so I'm figuring out ways to occupy my time. I didn't really need to do show prep because I figured I was going to be here until 4:30. So 9:30 rolls around, a few more people roll in, and nothing's happening. We're all just sitting there. I'm like, okay, that's what's happening. This is just how it's going to be. 9:40, still nothing is happening. More people are sitting down. I guess a few people got there late. I'm like, when does this thing start? Because I left my house early and did not do my morning walk and cut out my morning exercise routine with the dog so I could be here on time. Finally, at 9:45, somebody comes out and says, all right, jury duty, we're going to begin. All right, you all have that form with you. I know you filled it out online, but we need you to fill it out in pen, on paper. So they have a form that they mail to you when you check in, and then you put all this information on the website when you log into the jury duty website. And I did that months ago. But now they have all that information, but since the bureaucracy is real, they need me with my awful second grader level handwriting to fill out a form in pen, something that I don't feel great doing. Because they want me to put my emergency contact, and my scribble is so bad, I don't think they're going to get my wife's phone number right. I have to put my name. I have to put my phone number. I have to put my employer and whether or not my employer pays for jury duty, which I think they do. And I wasn't sure. And they're like, well, you can call your employer, but I'm not going to call. First of all, Lewis was on a flight to San Francisco, so I'm not going to do that. But what am I supposed to do? So since now I have another hour to kill, because again, nothing is happening except now everyone has to fill out the form again that we were already filling out online. I start looking up the employee handbook that I have for this radio station, which it's been a while since I brushed up on it. I start scrolling through it through jury duty. It's not specific on how many days they pay for here. I think it's unlimited, but I'm not sure. I would assume so, since a certain somebody was on a jury for 3 weeks. But I write down my name and my employer, how many days I'm given, and I think it was unlimited. And then nothing happens for another 30 minutes. We're just sitting there, but I'm occupying my time. At this point, I have uploaded like 15 different old cooking videos, so I felt very productive with my time. And then a woman comes out and says, okay, jurors. Now, this is probably about 10:20. So I've been sitting there for an hour and 10 minutes. This thing was supposed to start at 9:30, but we finally all filled out our forms. And then the moment of truth. How many trials do we actually have for you today? And the woman comes out and says, we have 2 potential trials. One is a civil trial. One is a criminal trial. And she begins to give us information about one of the trials. It is a civil trial, and it may last 30 to 40 days starting on January 5th. Now, if you had written down on your form that you have unlimited jury duty days, you're probably going to get selected for this. But the judge is understanding and has a list of exemptions in case you are not able to fulfill this service. And the exemptions are something like, If you are a student and this would impact your schoolwork, well, that can't be. If you're a parent and you can't take that much time away from watching your child, well, of course. If you have prepaid travel, my ears perked up. Wait, what? Prepaid what? So, by the way, I would love to do my duty to serve. I've never served on a jury. I got as far as the selection process in a DUI case once, and then I was excused. Maybe they thought my name was funny. But a 30 to 40 day trial, that might be a little much, considering I have a very unique job. If I'm not here, there's no show. If I'm not there noon to 3, Johnny does a show, but, doesn't have the sound and doesn't have our banter. Look, we're both at our best when we're together. It's true when he's gone. It's true when I'm gone. So 30 to 40 days of that might seem a little much, but I can't make up an excuse. And I can't, sit there and be like, well, I can't do it. My important radio job, they're not going to listen to that. So they call the names of the people that are potentially going to be selected for this trial. And you're just supposed to say yes or no to whether you think you have an exemption or you don't. So you say yes if you are able to serve on this trial. And a whole bunch of people say yes, and they are immediately excused. It's like, okay, you can go home today at 10:20 because you're coming back January 5th and you might be on this trial. And of course, only a few of them will actually end up on the trial. But I was like, oh, maybe that was the way to go. But then they start calling out all the names they start, asking people, all the people that said they had an exemption. And I walk up to the window. And she says, okay, why can you not serve on this trial? And I said, and this is 100% true. Well, if it starts January 5th and it's supposed to run for 30 days, I have already booked a flight to New Mexico on January 17th. And she said, prove it. So I pulled out my Alaska Airlines app, and what do you know? Last week, I just happened to book my first trip to Santa Fe in 2026 because I would like to be there for a week. I've never been there in January. And because I had that ticket booked, I was exempt from this trial and was excused at 10:30. So at 10:30, on this day that I had blocked out, that I had already called in jury duty, that I had already canceled my contracts with my advertisers to do their live reads, I was done. Now, I could have taken the day off. No one would have known any better, but I'm not going to do that, especially when there's like 7 or 8 working days left for the year. So I'm like, look, there's no way I'm going to get to Culver City, but someone can run the board. I'll go home, connect to the radio station, and what do you know? I was able to do the noon to 3 show, and I'm sitting here right now able to do the 5 to 6 show. I served my duty. I've got a green piece of paper that is my certificate, but I didn't have to actually serve on a jury. And the best takeaway that I can get from all of this is if today didn't happen, I would have never remembered Mangugu.
My name is Mangugu. Mangugu. That's right.
So that's my jury duty story. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222. 1-800-222-5222. Your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. Give me a follow on YouTube. Hit subscribe, youtube.com/@randywangradio, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. Gavin Newsom has been making the rounds lately, doing a whole lot of interviews, doing a whole lot of podcasts, doing a whole lot of not being in California, even when there are emergencies facing this state. But he's got bigger fish to fry. He wants to run for president. It's pretty obvious at this point. So he's going on all the big podcasts, including one of the most popular podcasts for the progressive crowd, and that is the Ezra Klein Show. Ezra Klein is the guy that wrote the book Abundance. He is behind this movement of people. I mean, he's not behind it, but people because of him are behind this YIMBY agenda, which is the driver behind things like SB 79. We've just got to build, build, build. And if Democrats don't deliver, people aren't going to vote for them. So it's always interesting when Gavin talks to Ezra, because Ezra used to live in California, used to live in San Francisco, so he knows a lot of the problems here, where when Gavin goes on a lot of other national shows, they don't even talk about what's going on in California, and Gavin can try to pivot to national all he wants, but the affordability crisis in California is something Gavin has to own, because he's been the governor for 7 years. Let's hear what they had to say. This was on the Ezra Klein Show.
The big political issue of the day is affordability.
Period.
California, U.S. News and World Report on Wallet Hub, look at all these different rankings. It ranks 50th on affordability.
Yeah.
We're number 50. I don't know if we should be able to celebrate that.
Yeah.
These measures combine housing costs and other measures of cost of living.
Yeah.
Why and what is the affordability agenda that is credible coming from the governor of California?
It's interesting. Wallet Hub also talks about the happiest city index, 5 of the top 10.
Listen, man,
Yes, certain cities are very happy, like San Jose and Irvine, but that's because most of those people can already afford to live there. Doesn't stop the fact that there is a huge barrier to entry to the California dream. Look, my generation, it's pretty bleak, and I'm not anywhere close to the Gen Zs. Like, my generation is, if your parents can help you buy a house, you own a house. If your parents cannot help you buy a house, you don't own a house. The generation younger than me, lucky if you can move out of your parents' house to rent a place by the time you're 30. That's tough.
I got tattoos, and I got redwoods tattooed on my arm. I grieve every day I'm not in California. You don't need to tell me it's a happier place to be.
And in terms of taxes, which is interesting, Wallet Hub comes out with their annual survey on taxes saying we're slightly above average on taxes. Total mythology there. It's the highest tax rate in the country, but not the highest taxes.
It's still a lot of money. And it drives up everything, including the gas tax. You can compare us to Texas, you can compare us to Florida, what have you. But people in Texas, in certain areas, can still afford a home. Believe you me, there are plenty of unaffordable parts of Texas. There are neighborhoods in Dallas that are ritzier than Beverly Hills.
Across the board when you add
Houston, that's another story. I don't understand how people live in that swamp.
Everything. That said, the affordability issue in California is real. It's been the original sin going back decades and decades. Housing, period, full stop.
Yes, but you're the guy in charge. And you've been in charge for quite some time. And you were lieutenant governor before that. And you were the mayor of San Francisco before that. And a supervisor before that.
Things in more ways on more days explains everything. It's the original sin in California. NIMBYism. We haven't gone out our own way. We haven't produced enough housing stock. It's Econ 101. Supply, demand. It's not very complicated. And when I started as governor, there was no housing agenda. There was no homeless agenda.
Well, that might be a good thing, because the more money we have spent on that problem, including $20 billion over 5 years alone, hasn't necessarily improved the problem, has it? One could argue the more services that we have, the more of the problem we're getting.
Not the responsibility role of the state. It was assigned to cities and counties and regional COCs. And we changed all that. In fact, I put a marker down within the first few days when I got into office by suing some cities in my state, put 47 on notice, sued Huntington Beach.
And is it cheaper to live in Huntington Beach because of that lawsuit? No? Okay, so we're talking about nonsense right now. Also, he can't go any interview without blasting Huntington Beach.
And have changed radically our approach to accountability, creating a housing accountability unit, looked at state excess land sites, which has unlocked over 5,000 units, began a process of working with carrots and sticks to move from NIMBYism to a YIMBYist mindset, which I think we have demonstrated in meaningful ways, in substantive ways.
There's been a lot of legislation passed. There's been a lot of reforms, but it is still as unaffordable to live here as it was, you might argue, more unaffordable. And not all of this is state policy. I mean, we can be completely honest. One of the drivers of why it's so unbelievably expensive to live and why the real estate market is so sluggish is because of interest rates. You can't blame that one on Gavin. Could blame it on Biden, but you definitely can't blame that one on Gavin. But the interest rates make it so if you're lucky enough to be locked in the twos, you're not selling that house. That's not happening. And how would you want to move? Even if you want to upgrade or downgrade or even make a lateral move, you're locked into that 2%. What, are you going to sell that place to buy somewhere at 6%, which means your mortgage is going to be way more expensive? That's tough.
110,000 housing units were completed last year. It's completely underwhelming.
Well, if you're running against Gavin in the 2028 primary, there it is right there. Gavin saying how much housing was built last year in a state of 40 million people and admitting it was completely underwhelming.
And so we have more work to do.
Why is it so hard? Because you've wanted to do this. You put a 3.5 million housing production goal.
That was the aspirational goal, and then the legal goal, 2.5 million by 2030.
Great. Yeah, we're not close to any of those by any means. And yeah, there was a pandemic in the middle of those, but still, that was a long time ago.
So let's use 2.5 million. Under our regional, what we call the RENA goals, and that is the established legal fire. And by the way, it's the first time we had goal setting that was this.
But you're not on track for either goal.
No one is. Yeah,
no one is. But
across the country, and that's, by the way, that's a macro. You got 1.2 million or so units.
Okay, see, this is one of the things that Gavin likes to deflect. When there's failures in the state, he starts pointing to other states. I don't care about the governors in the other states because I don't live in those other states. There are other states I'd like to live in, but that's another story for another day.
Places are, I mean, look, I spend, because I'm a nerd, a fair amount of time looking at statistics on housing starts in Austin and Houston.
Yeah, well, Austin's having now a big downturn in terms of costs because of some of the overbuilding, but it's interesting, right?
Listen,
well, and that's an interesting story. Austin saw a huge boom during COVID because a lot of tech people moved out there because of all the draconian lockdowns in San Francisco, the Bay Area, and California. And it was going to be the second coming, the new tech mecca. Elon had moved out there. Joe Rogan had moved out there. So many businesses were moving out there. And so all of these luxury apartment buildings were going up all over the place. Traffic got incredibly crazy. But then something happened. Two things. One, COVID ended and a lot of bosses said, no, you got to come back to California. You're not working remote from Texas, or we're going to pay you Texas level wages. And two, and I can attest to this one, not every Californian is built for an Austin summer. Texas in the summer, Texas in August, that is some misery right there that you Californians are not equipped for. I just go for a week to two and it's awful. And there were a lot of people that spent 1 or 2 summers in Texas and said, no, I don't care what it costs. Send me back to cold San Francisco.
I think of California having a big downturn in rents because it's overbuilt. I think that would be a welcome change of problem.
No, I get it.
We would love to see that. All right, we will come back with more of this because Gavin is going to get into the fine details of why, in his words, it's so hard to build here. When he wants to build, the legislature wants to build, every local elected wants to build, and this is true on both sides of the aisle. Why is it so hard to build? We'll find out. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Gavin Newsom went on with Ezra Klein of the New York Times to, promote his national campaign for president, but was asked about why it's so hard to build housing here. Let's continue. This was on the Ezra Klein Show today.
No, we have to build more housing.
Genuinely serious. I've seen how many bills you've passed. I've covered a bunch of them. What makes this so hard?
You got 470 cities, you have 58 counties. I mentioned just the 101 jurisdictions in the cities and counties just around the Bay Area.
Localism is determinative is not the answer to every problem and every hindrance to your administration.
We've gotten to LA County, there's 88 cities, 88 leaders, COCs. everybody is...
By the way, a lot of the legislation that's been passed lately completely takes away local zoning. So you can't even talk about that.
It's participatory in this. And so that's the challenge. It's that labyrinth. By the way, these folks aren't happy. League of Cities not happy. Our county partners are not happy. We are
You had Karen Bass in the city of Los Angeles openly oppose SB 79, but it passed anyway because Karen Bass has no cachet.
Ourselves in ways that the state has never asserted ourselves into local planning decisions in order to break down those barriers. And we've been breaking down those barriers. What we need is to break down the costs of borrowing. It's the last piece that's missing right now. I think we have shifted the dialogue. We have won the debate. We're on the other side of this. And the proof point will be when we see the borrowing cost reduction.
So I think
it can't just be the interest rates, because Gavin was governor for 3 years when interest rates were at the lowest they've ever been. Heck, during COVID, at one point, they were back down to the zeros.
you can think about what it takes to build housing as having 3 buckets. One is land use, zoning, permitting, et cetera, the sort of legal traps you have to run in order to get started.
Yep.
Then there's financing of construction,
Yep.
interest rates, things like that, and cost of construction, which is related, but has to do with the cost of materials, labor, all the rest of it. And as you say, I think in a lot of blue states, the fight on land use and zoning is intellectually one. Whether or not it's been totally policy one, that's harder, but I do think that's one. The financing and the cost of construction, which, by the way, with Trump's tariffs and deportations is getting worse on a bunch of levels. Tell me about those, because I actually think those are harder to talk about.
The cost of building and the cost of labor when it comes to construction.
Well, and you didn't even bring up productivity, which is down about 30% since 1970 to 2020.
In the housing sector.
In the housing sector. And let's establish situationally, the tariffs environment has impacted the cost of goods. So material supplies has gone up. He's made it worse, Donald Trump. The labor shortages are real. Today, there was a Wall Street Journal article showing 300 or 400 plus thousand construction worker shortage, and they can't even get enough.
Okay, but then what was the excuse in 2024 and 2023 and 2022?
Data center workers to address some of the energy needs for AI, et cetera. And that's been exacerbated by the mass deportation efforts, et cetera. So those two things are important. But the issue of productivity goes to deeper questions now around, can we look at new styles of construction? Are we going to promote at scale modular housing? Prefab housing.
This is off-site.
Off-site.
You're building houses like you'd build a car and then assembling them on site.
And
Factory-made homes, which, by the way, a lot of countries do.
it's also 3D printing, which is really interesting. There's some interesting
They do it on HGTV. Why can't they do that at scale?
companies in Texas. They're actually working with NASA in terms of some opportunities there, in terms of new materials. AI, as it relates to the material space, is also interesting in relationship to this conversation. So, look, I do think we're about to experience a completely different shift on the productivity side.
You know who Gavin reminds me of? I had a friend who we can never really tell what his job was, but he always said, I'm about to blow up any minute. Any day now, I'm about to blow up. It's about to get real. I am about to explode. That's what Gavin reminds me of right now. Very slick. Just another year, this thing is the flywheel is going to happen. But here we are 7 years later, and things are not even noticeably better when it comes to the affordability of building housing, or even the rate that housing is being built. Gavin admitted right there, it's underwhelming. In 2024, 110,000 homes in a state of 40 million. And how many of those homes were built on top of homes that were taken down? Because we always like to take down old apartment buildings to build new apartment buildings.
Because of necessity, because of the reality, because of the crisis of affordability. And this holds a lot of promise. It holds a lot of political peril in the context of the politics within labor.
There it is. We're finally getting to it. Why are we not using AI to make housing more affordable? Why are we not building modular? Why are we not doing all this technology? Why are we still back to 1980 standards for building? Because we need more bodies to build the homes, and we need to have it be union labor, and we have minimum building standards for building contracts, and this is true statewide, it's true local-wide, county-wide. And labor has a stranglehold on this market, and no politician in California is going to be able to successfully go up against the construction lobby and the construction trades. And that is one of the reasons why it is so expensive to build here. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. If you would like to email us, you can do so at randywangradio@gmail.com. That's the new email address for the show, randywangradio@gmail.com. Susan writes in on the subject of slithery, slimy Gavin Newsom. I like it. Works for me. Randy, sometimes I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for you when you verbally annotate the latest horse crap from that delusional, puffed up, arrogant, word salad spewing horse's ass of a worst governor ever. Gavin Newsom, so effective. Look, Gavin Newsom would have a very easy time running for president if he had a record to run on. And regardless of what you think about his politics or, how he likes to troll the administration, what have you, ultimately, I don't care what people say. I don't care about their bluster. I care about results and what noticeably has improved over the last 7 years with Gavin Newsom. Not a lot. I don't think a lot improved during the Jerry Brown days. I don't think a lot improved during the Arnold Schwarzenegger days. Now, a lot of that had to do with what was going on federally as well. Anyone that was just coming out of college when the market crashed in 2008 is pretty jaded about a whole bunch of things. But if Gavin had successes, we'd be hearing about them a lot more instead of trying to just shift the conversation to what's going on with other states. Hey, I've got a new YouTube channel. You can go subscribe to it, youtube.com/@RandyWangRadio. I just finished a new video. It highlights how my wife and I were able to get a practically free meal at one of the nicest restaurants in Santa Fe, thanks to a credit on my wife's American Express card that she didn't know about till I started figuring out, okay, wait, we pay how much in an annual fee? We're going to start taking advantage of these benefits. So if you would like to learn about that, check out the video, youtube.com/@RandyWangRadio. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.